Have you ever wondered what it was really like to live in the Middle Ages? It wasn't just knights in shining armor and majestic castles. It was a 1,000-year saga, a whirlwind of change that completely reshaped the world and laid the foundations for modern Europe. So grab your virtual time machine, because we're about to journey back through a millennium of history, from the fall of Rome to the dawn of the Renaissance. Our story begins around the year 476 AD. The once mighty Western Roman Empire, the superpower of its day, had crumbled. Imagine the chaos! Trade routes collapsed, cities emptied out, and a sense of uncertainty hung in the air. This period, often called the Dark Ages, was a time of survival. In place of a single empire, numerous Germanic kingdoms rose, like the Franks, the Goths, and the Vandals. Life became very local. People huddled together in small, self-sufficient villages, their world shrinking to the fields they farmed, and the lord they served under a new system called feudalism. At the heart of this new order was the Christian Church. With Rome's political power gone, the Church became the unifying force across Europe, a beacon of learning, culture, and faith in a fragmented world. Monasteries weren't just places of prayer. They were libraries, schools, and hospitals, preserving ancient knowledge that might have otherwise been lost forever. As we move into the 8th and 9th centuries, a figure of legendary status emerges: Charlemagne, King of the Franks. He was a brilliant military leader and a visionary ruler who dreamed of rebuilding the Roman Empire. He conquered vast territories, creating a massive empire that stretched across modern-day France, Germany, and Italy. On Christmas Day, in the year 800, the Pope crowned him emperor, a hugely symbolic moment that linked his new empire with the legacy of ancient Rome and the authority of the Church. Charlemagne was more than just a conqueror. He sparked a cultural revival known as the Carolingian Renaissance, promoting education and standardizing writing. But his great empire was hard to hold together. After his death, his grandsons divided it, and Europe once again faced a new wave of threats. From the north came the Vikings, fierce raiders in their iconic longships, who terrorized coastlines but also became incredible explorers and traders, reaching as far as North America. From the east, the Magyars on horseback raided deep into Central Europe, while from the south, Saracen pirates threatened the Mediterranean. It was another period of intense trial and transformation. By the time we reach the 11th century, things are starting to look up. This is what we call the High Middle Ages, a period of incredible growth and confidence. Agricultural innovations, like the heavy plow and the three-field system, meant more food could be grown. More food meant a bigger population. Towns and cities, which had shrunk after Rome's fall, began to swell once again. A new class of people emerged: merchants, artisans, and craftsmen, who formed guilds to protect their trades. This was the era of the great Gothic cathedrals, like Notre Dame in Paris, soaring towards the heavens, their stained glass windows telling biblical stories in vibrant color. Universities were founded in Bologna, Paris, and Oxford, becoming centers of intellectual debate and discovery. But this era was also defined by a monumental clash of civilizations: the Crusades. Starting in 1095, popes called on Christian knights to march to the Holy Land and reclaim Jerusalem. For the next 2 centuries, waves of crusaders and armies journeyed east. While they had a profound impact on the relationship between Christianity and Islam, they also opened up new trade routes and exposed Europeans to the advanced knowledge and luxury goods of the East, bringing back spices, silks, and new ideas that would further fuel Europe's revival. Now we enter the late Middle Ages, starting around the year 1300. This was a century of crisis, a time of almost unimaginable hardship. A period of climate change known as the Little Ice Age led to widespread famine. The 100 Years' War, a brutal, century-long conflict between England and France, devastated the landscape and introduced new, deadly weapons like the longbow. But nothing could prepare Europe for the horror that arrived in 1347, the Black Death. This terrifying pandemic, carried by fleas on rats, swept across the continent, wiping out an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of the entire population. Imagine entire villages disappearing, the social fabric completely unraveling. It was a catastrophe of biblical proportions. Yet, humanity is resilient. The massive loss of life had unexpected consequences. With fewer workers available, peasants and laborers could suddenly demand better wages and more freedom, shaking the very foundations of the old feudal system. The unquestioned authority of the church also began to be challenged, as people grappled with why such a disaster had occurred. Despite the darkness, the seeds of a new world were being sown. The crises of the 14th century accelerated changes that were already underway. The power of feudal lords weakened, while kings and centralized nations grew stronger. Trade with the East, especially through Italian city-states like Venice and Genoa, flourished, bringing immense wealth and new perspectives. This wealth funded a spectacular explosion of art, science, and philosophy. In Italy, thinkers and artists began looking back with fresh eyes at the classical art and literature of ancient Greece and Rome, sparking the incredible cultural movement we call the Renaissance. Meanwhile, a German goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press around 1440. This was a complete game changer. Suddenly, books and ideas could be mass-produced and spread across Europe faster than ever before. Knowledge was no longer locked away in monasteries. It was becoming accessible to a wider audience, fueling literacy and critical thinking. By the end of the 15th century, the medieval world was fading. Explorers like Christopher Columbus were setting sail across the Atlantic, opening up entirely new continents. Religious reformers like Martin Luther were about to challenge the Church's authority, leading to the Protestant Reformation. The Middle Ages were over, but their legacy is all around us. From the ashes of Rome, medieval Europe forged a new identity. It created our modern languages, our legal systems, our universities, and the very map of the continent. It was a brutal, beautiful, and complex 1,000 years. A story of faith and folly, of survival and spectacular rebirth. It's a crucial chapter in the story of us. Thank you so much for joining me on this whirlwind tour of the Middle Ages. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments which part of the medieval period you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious.